He called himself a missionary for farm broadcasting. He was a missionary, all right, and so much more. John C. Baker was a broadcasting pioneer who wrote the book, Farm Broadcasting, the First 60 Years. He wrote the book, he said, as a labor of love. It is prized by those fortunate enough to own a copy because it contains the very roots and growth of broadcasting as a service to farm people. This is the story of John C. Baker. John Baker was born in Brazil, Indiana in 1909. His father, John E. Baker, was an osteopathic physician who also developed a 100-acre apple orchard near town. That's where young John spent much of his boyhood. Apples were good to John. He won ribbons with 7 or 8 varieties at the Indiana State Fair, and apples paid his tuition at Purdue. As a high school sophomore, John was on the BOAG team that won the state dairy judging contest. The team went on to judge at the National Dairy Show, Syracuse, New York. One team member was first in Indiana and second in the Nationals, a senior named Orville Redenbacher, still known for the branded hybrid popcorn he developed. John played football and was a high jumper in track in high school. In 1926, he followed Redenbacher to Purdue University. This is Mother's Day at his Phi Kappa Psi fraternity. That's John, front row, with one foot on the riser. His mother is on his left. In 1929, John began working part-time in the Ag Extension Office, broadcasting on WBAA, the Purdue station. He continued extension radio after graduation. But in 1931, he did 2 things. He married his college sweetheart, Mary Kleckner, and they moved to Massachusetts. As farm broadcaster for the Extension Service, he wrote scripts and broadcast on 5 New England stations. He also found time to be a member of the faculty badminton team. Can you spot John? In 1935, George Bigger hired John to assist Art Page with his Dinner Bell Time program on WLS. So the Bakers moved to Chicago. He helped establish School Time, an afternoon program tailored for one-room country schools. And he found himself writing promotion for WLS and Prairie Farmer. John and Mary's son, John L. Baker, was born in Chicago in 1937. This is a 1939 picture of the 3 generations of John Bakers. Their daughter, Mary Jo, was born 2 years later. Wallace Catterley, the new chief of radio service at the USDA, tapped John to be radio extension specialist in Washington in 1938, and the Baker family moved to Falls Church, Virginia. Much of John's time was spent traveling. Missionary work, he called it, urging radio stations in 38 states to program for farmers. He was also broadcasting the 4-H people on NBC's National Farm and Home Hour and voicing features on ABC's American Farmer program. Soon he was designated speechwriter for the Secretary of Agriculture, Claude Wickard. When World War II started, his carpool included Milton Eisenhower, who took John Baker with him when he was appointed head of the War Relocation Authority. Just a few weeks later, they took over the Office of War Information. In 1944, John Baker became a Marine lieutenant and Air Combat Intelligence officer. At war's end, he returned to USDA as chief of the radio service. He also joined NARFD, now NAFB, in 1945. In 1947, John was invited to take over as program director of WLS Chicago, and the family moved to Evanston, Illinois, their home for the next 14 years. In 1950, he rejoined USDA as head of the Midwest Regional Office in Chicago, serving 12 states with market information. He also worked weekends at WLS doing news, announcing, and writing copy. John Baker learned to play the jug while still at WBAA. In Evanston, he developed an amplifier for the jug and played in a Dixieland band called Academic Cats. His other hobbies were tennis, badminton, acting in little theater, and singing. In the 60s, John blew his jug as part of the NAFB Gypsies. Appointed information officer for USDA's Economics and Statistics Department, The Baker family moved back to the D.C. area in 1962. 2 years later, John moved to the Bureau of Census in a similar position. Officially retiring in 1969, he continued as a consultant for the 1970 census. From 1966 to 1981, John Baker taught speech at the USDA's graduate school. He found the text inadequate, so he wrote a new one titled How to Talk Plainly. During this period, he was active in a local writers' club and began assembling material for his book on farm broadcasting. It was published by the Iowa State Press. This is the NAFB Chats promotion for the book. In July of 1981, Mary and John celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary with a trip to Lucerne, Switzerland. Mary G. Baker died in the spring of 1984. John remarried Betty Elliott in November. 5 years later, they moved to a retirement community in Ponte Vedra, Florida, where they were active in the Vickers Landing Writers Group and Chorus. Here's John at the Sawgrass Country Club in '94. Here, 2 years later, with Angie, Betty's daughter, Angie's son and daughter, and Betty holding her great-grandson's son. And for Betty's 90th birthday, January '98, Betty's 4 children threw a party. Marin and Angie with arms around John, Nora, and Tim next to Betty. John's wife Betty died in April 1999. John died July 28, 1999, survived by 2 children and 5 grandchildren. John C. Baker, pioneer farm broadcaster and farm broadcasting missionary, administrator, and writer, is now enshrined in the NAFB Hall of Fame.